Hey guys, I'm going to show you the differences between Python and PHP. A couple of the differences, because on Twitter someone asked, why are you hopping on the Python train and you see PHP in the distance? I personally like Python. I love learning new languages, but I really like the way Python's written. And when you look at your code, it's really elegant. And that's not to say PHP is bad in any way. It has its shortcomings in my opinion, but Python, it can do a lot of stuff. It's not just for a web server. So let me show you some examples. On the left I have Python, on the right I have PHP code. And you can use a pound sign for a comment, and you notice that I use the // for a comment in PHP. I believe you can also use a pound sign in PHP, and you can do the ** brackets for a comment in PHP also. Python's comments can also be a comment like this for a multi-line comment. So, it's not a debate over who has better comments. I'll show you a couple things. So we can get rid of the comments here. I'll leave the main PHP one there. How about let's start with namespaces. In PHP, if I want to access a namespace, Zend framework something else, right? It's not that attractive if I did namespace Jesse life. We're using these backslashes. This is just how it looks, and in my opinion I really dislike the backslash, but in Python you would do import Zend framework something, while you would do from Zend framework something import else. Obviously this isn't a real import, but you see it's a lot different with the dot syntax. And to use a namespace in Python, it's actually different. You don't just set it anywhere you want. You actually have to have your file name. This file name would have to be called something, and it would have to belong in a folder called framework and in another folder called Zend. So Python has a forced way to organize. So that's one thing, the namespaces. Let's look at a couple other things. How about a variable? Let's say name equals Jesse, age equals 28, and we end those with a semicolons. I have no problem with PHP variables. In Python I'll just say name equals Jesse, age equals 28. For some reason I still think I'm 25, but I act like I'm 12. Okay, so it's essentially the same thing, not a big deal. Let's check out an if statement. If age is greater than 10, echo it's true. Now with PHP you have a lot of leniency how you do your if statements. You can put your brackets down there and all that. And then we have an else statement. It's not true. And then we have our else if statements. Else if age is less than 10, how about age equals 10? We'll just say echo on the money. Okay, and we don't want to forget to end these with our little semicolons. Okay, now if I was doing this in Python, I'd say if age is greater than 10, print it's true, and then elif age equals 10, print yada, else print hey. Okay, just so you can see the difference here. The syntax highlighting might throw you off a little bit. Try not to be bothered by that. In Python we don't have the parentheses like you're forced to in PHP, nor do variables have to have the dollar symbol. So the if statement's pretty cool. We can mix it up with some functions now. If I want to make a function in Python, I use the word def, and I'll just say who am I? Okay, and I'll say print name. Okay, like that. In PHP would say function who am I, name, and print name. Okay. Now, if I take it a step further, one thing that PHP needs is keyword arguments. So what if I had age? I'll just say age equals none. I can do this. I can say, who am I? Age equals 25. Name equals test. Now, perhaps that's a bad example. All I did was flip them around. The point is being that you can call items in the order that they're specified, like this. So test would represent name. And if you wanted to do a keyword argument, like let's say I had another one, gender is none, I could say gender equals male. And you know, you can skip arguments a lot easier. In here, if I did age gender, I'll just do false for defaults. I would have to say who am I? And test false male. Not really a big deal, but once in a while you'll get into situations you're going to be like, wow, I really want keyword arguments, especially if these got really long and it's a function you want to use. Okay, so let me scroll down a little ways. The types are a little bit different. So with Python, let me just make something called L equals this, and I'll say 1, 2, 3, okay? And what is this? This is a list. PHP doesn't have these. The thing in PHP you'd represent would be A equals array 1, 2, 3. Or if you're doing it the new way, you would do A equals 1, 2, 3. And I really like the new way. That's in 5.4 and above. And then we have dictionaries, so I'll say D equals, and we use the curly braces. I'll make a new line so it's easier to read. This looks just like JSON code. I'll say name equals Ted, age equals 25. In PHP we'd say D equals, I'll use the shorthand syntax. Whoops. Name equals arrow Ted, age equals arrow 25. So essentially it's pretty close to the same thing. You know, you have numbers and those are the same, you know, num equals 5, and in PHP it'd be num equals 5. Another thing would be chopping up your arrays and strings. So if I had I'll just say dog equals Betsy, and if I wanted to get a part of dog, I could say let's say I want to reverse the string. I can just do -1 and that'll spell Betsy backwards, so it'd be like that. Whoops. If I wanted to just get a little piece of it, I could say dog. What point do I want to start it? If I start at 1 and go to 3, so 1, 3, it would be EX, like that. It's really easy to manipulate a string that way. In PHP to do that, I could have dog equals Betsy, and I could do string reverse of dog, and that'll give me the reverse thing. There is also a reverse inside of Python, like that, but it's a lot easier just to get used to these colons and the brackets. If I wanted to get a portion of the string, I could do a string, I could do a substring of, I always forget the needle in the haystack, that's what frustrates me. I'm just going to guess off the top of my head, and I'd say 1 to 3. If this is in the right order, sometimes it's the haystack comes last. I always have to look at the docs if I don't have it pop up. Bugs me. So, but beside that, that's not a big deal. It's pretty nice. When you're dealing with arrays and lists, like let's say I have a L equals 1, 2, 3 once again, and let's just type it out again. L equals 1, 2, 3 in PHP. Remember that's 5.4 and up. If I want to grab a section, I would say L 1. That would give me the second value because 0, 1. Okay. If I wanted values 1 and 2, I would have to do something like array shift L equals that would be to pop off like the 3. I think I always get pop and shift mixed up all the time. Something like that. Okay, this isn't like totally perfect. In Python, what I would do is I would say L, the place I want to get it would be 1 to mimic this, to get that place, and this 1 would give me that value. To get the first 2 values, I could say L0 to 1. That would give me 0 and 1. I know there's like array splice that you can also use. L equals array splice, L, and a bunch of array functions that you got to memorize. But I feel like all these underscore array functions, there's a lot of them. I wish you could just import an array item. Look at all those. Like PHP should have something like import, or sorry, in PHP it'd be use system / array, and then you'd say splice, split. You know what I mean? Or you could just use the namespace because it's all wonky. But that's a personal preference. Classes are pretty close to each other. So in Python, to make a class, I'll make one called dog, and I'll make a definition called bark and print arf. Now in classes, we always have to reference self because this definition references the class dog here. And inside PHP, we would say class dog and public function bark and print arf. Okay, so you can see it's a bit simpler. It's just tabbed over instead of using the braces, and it's something you know, you might hate it first, you might start to like it. I don't know, I think both ways are pretty decent. I do like the Java language, and PHP is pretty close to that with this. You know, to make a variable up here, you could say public name. Up here you could say name equals Jesse or something like that. Looping in Python is a little better in my opinion, at least I think so. So we have a for I equals 1, I is less than 10, I plus plus, echo I, right? In Python I'll say for I in range of 10, print I. And what range does, range is the exact same thing as if I were to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's just a function to make it easier. And interesting, range can also take steps. So I could do comma 2 and it would print 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Rather than having to say, do a modulus and say if I %2 equals 0, echo I, like that. Sorry for the tone of my voice. I was trying to sound a little sarcastic. I really do like PHP, so I'm not trying to diss it at all. It's not really a language war. I just want to show you the comparison of a couple of things. So the difference is that in this loop, this has to be an iterable item, and by default a list is iterable. But if you had a dictionary such as this D, let me copy this down here, you'd have to be like for I in D, print I. But sometimes you have to do something like iter items or iter values if you want to get the key val. Similar to that, but in PHP it'd be for each something as key value echo key, echo value. So it's pretty close. Sometimes you can enumerate like that. Let me delete that. But I guess what I like a lot about Python is that if you want to use something, I'll just import things I need, right? Or I could do it this way. However you like to do it. In PHP, everything's accessible, which, you know, isn't a big deal, but it would seem to me that it's just saving a lot of resources by not using what you don't need. So this is just kind of a summary of the language. I will say I don't like Ruby. Ruby's a little bit like Python, but it has a lot of funny things to it, and I'm not really interested in Ruby at all. But when you get into a big project and you really start looking at the code, if someone's a bad Python programmer, it looks a lot better than a bad PHP programmer. I think Python's more readable, just probably because it has less characters. When you use a framework like, say, an MVC framework like Laravel or CodeIgniter, those are very nice frameworks and easy to use. But when you use Python Django, it's actually got a really hard learning curve. It's very difficult, but it's also very clean. When you look at Flask and Tornado in Python, those are also really nice. And one thing that's really nice on this is it has method decorators. It has method decorator, and you can do those and these can do custom things, method decorators, which are cool. Those do not exist in PHP yet, and I don't know if they will. But this video is getting a bit long. I hope this gives you an idea of kind of a little bit of the differences. They're close, but hey, if you learn one language, you can learn the other, because, you know, they all share common things. So thanks for watching, dudes.